Professor Snow raised a number of very important issues, which I'm glad I'll now be able to address. The nature of this debate is a little bit strange to me because it mimics so much the debate I had several years ago during the California campaign. The difference is the facts are now in. The largest controlled educational experiment in the history of the world took place a few years ago, involving over 1 million students in California who were largely shifted away from bilingual education to English immersion. During that campaign, the supporters of bilingual education refused to defend their existing program. They admitted it had terrible problems, but they said the alternative would be worse. Getting rid of these programs would be a disaster. Instead, the average test scores of over 1 million immigrant students have gone up by 50% in less than 3 years. Those school districts that most strictly and completely followed the initiative and got rid of their bilingual programs doubled their test scores in less than 3 years. Don't believe me, believe the New York Times, the Washington Post, CBS News, every major media source in the United States. The war is over, or at least it should be over, if academics were willing to look at the reality of the world rather than their own research. And again, don't take my word for it. One of the strongest advocates we have now for Prop 227 in California is an individual who for 30 years was a bilingual education teacher. He became a school superintendent. He ended up opposing the initiative when it was on the ballot. He urged people to vote no. When it passed, though, he said the law is the law has to be obeyed. He followed the initiative, got rid of his bilingual programs. His student immigrant test scores doubled in less than 2 years, and he became a born-again convert to English immersion. He now admits he was wrong for 30 years. Bilingual education does not work. English immersion does work. And he was the founder of the California Association of Bilingual Educators. He admits he was wrong for 30 years. Or take, for example, a man named Reed Hastings. He's the liberal Democrat who's the president of the California State Board of Education, appointed by Governor Gray Davis. He opposed the initiative when it was on the ballot. He said it was one size fits all. The results have been so phenomenally good. He's been trying to get those school districts that have blocked the initiative and tried to avoid implementing it to back down and follow the law. He originally grew up in Massachusetts, and when he found out I was doing an initiative here, he not only endorsed it, but he wrote a $20,000 check to underscore his endorsement because he wants to improve the education of immigrant children in Massachusetts just the way it happened in California. Now, again, I'm a theoretical physics. I'm somebody who comes from a theoretical physics background. I'm an academic by training. I think academics should look at the reality of the world rather than their theories that are published in a lot of books, which may or may not be correct. The point about it is all the academics who support bilingual education, they all believe, and publicly many times willing to state, that it takes a young child 5 to 7 years to learn English. Some of them actually claim 10 years. I would say this, I urge every voter in Massachusetts who honestly believes it takes 5 to 7 years for a young child to learn English to vote no on our initiative. Make up your own mind. If you really think a child who starts kindergarten in the United States will require until junior high to actually learn English, I urge you to oppose our initiative. Furthermore, the academics who support bilingual education all claim that the older you are, the easier it is to learn another language. They claim adults learn a new language easier than teenagers, teenagers easier than little children. They are the only people in the world who believe that. Anyone who honestly believes that the older you are, the easier it is to learn another language should vote no on our initiative. It's as simple as that. For the other 99.5% of the people in Massachusetts or the United States, I urge you to vote yes. Again, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The test scores of over 1 million immigrant students in California have risen dramatically. Their parents are happy. Their teachers are happy. The people who oppose the initiative now support it. Now, why would that be happening if I were wrong and if the initiative didn't work? I think you have to really ask yourself whether the problem in these immigrant test scores we've seen over all these years is in spite of bilingual education or is because of bilingual education. Think of a very simple fact. In California and in the rest of the United States, children enter the public schools speaking up to 140 different languages. In almost all of these parts of the country, including in California, the only group of students that receives any significant quantity of these allegedly beneficial bilingual programs are Latino students. All the other language groups are given the equivalent of English immersion immediately. They're taught English as soon as they start school. Now, by an amazing coincidence, the one immigrant group in the United States that does the worst in school, with the highest dropout rates and the lowest test scores and the lowest rate of admissions to college, are Latino students. Now, that doesn't prove that the fault is bilingual education, but if the one group that gets the most bilingual education of all the immigrant groups does the worst in school, it certainly starts to shift the burden of proof over to the other side. And now that getting rid of these programs in California has so dramatically improved the academic performance of those Latino students, you really have to ask yourself whether you should believe the reality of your own census, the test scores of 1 million immigrant students in California, or 4 or 5 books piled there written by some professors at Harvard and a few other universities. Again, reality trumps theory. Theory cannot defeat reality. And the reality of 1 million students in California is not something that a few professors can whisk away by citing a couple of books. Again, don't believe me. Believe the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, every major investigative reporter in the United States. Bilingual education does not work and has never worked anywhere in the United States or in the world on a large scale. Thank you very much.